All right, I'm going to call this one Conquered for Radiant Historia. This was a viewer requested game from Holy Man Bob. So thank you very much, Holy Man Bob, for the recommendation that you made like 5, 6, 7 years ago or something like that. Finally got around to doing it. Um, let's see. For my first impressions of the game, despite touching on the time travel aspects fairly quickly, the story does seem to move pretty slow due to the timeline swapping. Combat is cool and unique. The way party members are handled is very confusing. Having a new party member only for one timeline makes it very awkward. Between that, the reduction in experience, and them not getting experience from other timelines, they fall behind and don't feel worth investing in. And for my overall thoughts, I thought this game was all right, which is a little strange. Uh, so like when I originally played this game and I had beat it for the DS version, I I wasn't like everybody else out there just adored Radiant Historia, and I just thought it was an okay game back then, and I still kind of feel like that. But this game does do really cool stuff, and so I think that's where the advantage is for this game that makes me think of it more fondly right now than I did back then. But it's still ultimately not, it doesn't go up into the echelon of, oh yeah, I like this game over other games, type of thing. But it has a lot of really cool ideas and really cool implementation of those ideas. Story, was it satisfying? Uh, sure. I'll give it that. Um, I there were a couple of routes that I would have preferred to happen instead, but it is what it is. Did it feel complete? Well, I didn't get credits, which again makes this very awkward for me. But I'll say that barring the whole credits situation, it does feel complete. How was the pacing? I have not great thanks to the timeline swapping, reaching a moment that feels like we're ramping up only to be required to get something from the other timeline is rough. I think this is probably my biggest criticism of this game is when you're in one timeline, you can only go up to a certain point, and then you have to swap to the other timeline, and you can only get up to a certain point there, and then you have to swap over with, like going back and forth. And it always happens like in the middle of the chapter, or like towards the end of the chapter, when I would rather swap timelines in between chapters, in the sense of like I've just finished chapter 2, now I can swap timelines, and then before I start chapter 3 I can go do that. So I have that in between moment. I don't think that fixes all of the problems with the pacing, but it would make it flow nicer for me. That being said, like the idea of you're in a timeline and you're like, oh, I don't know how to, solve this solution that I'm in, or solve this problem that has been presented to me, but maybe that answer is in the other timeline. I think that's a very cool idea, just not implemented in a way that I gravitate to. Thoughts on the story? I don't have anything written down here. Um, Wait, I I definitely wrote down stuff for the story. But I guess that's in gameplay mechanics and design. Um, Story, I thought was... I think it had a lot of interesting aspects. It didn't... Because the way the pacing was, it wasn't very easy to understand the significance of one timeline's story and like how it's supposed to get you to the final end point. Like we meet Erica towards the end, and a lot of the things that happen prior to that don't necessarily lead up to that event in totality. So some of the events just kind of seem out of place, I suppose. But I do like the approach that the story took, in the sense of like this is a time traveling game, and you're taking ideas and items from one timeline and using them in other timelines. I think that's very cool, and they approach that with the story in some cool ways. For gameplay mechanics and design, would gameplay elements stand out? Moving between two timelines is very cool and a very fresh idea in the way that it's implemented. Sadly, the allure dwindles as the game progresses. The timelines cover very similar events. This means that while we may be going to different places at different times to do different things, they are all doing similar things. Granorg is still the enemy, and we're still taking the same narrative path to stop them. This is one of my main criticisms of this game as well. I don't necessarily like that both timelines are doing kind of the same thing. It would have been far more interesting to go down timelines where like very different things are happening. You know, maybe Hugo is not our enemy. Maybe Raoul is the enemy. Maybe instead of Alastel invading Granorg, maybe Cygnus is invading Alastel, and that king guy is the evil guy. I feel like the scope of the game was super heavily condensed to accomplish very similar things, so that not a ton of extra things needed to be done. But and that's obviously a very smart thing to do when it comes to game development. But from a me playing the game kind of thing, I see so many wasted opportunities to tackle events that could have brought more allure to the whole time travel thing and going to different timelines. I just wish, what if Heiss was the good guy in one of the timelines, and we got to learn secrets from him when he was one of the good guys to use against him in a timeline where he's the bad guy. Just like ideas like that. I wish they did. We are visiting mostly locations we have visited before with no discernible changes. Having there be large differences between the layouts and other factors of locations would go a long way. This is another thing. I've always had an issue with playing games where, like, I play game number 1 in the series, and then I go to game number 2, and it's a lot or all of the same locations as from game number 1. I want to visit new places, see new things. I don't want to retread the same areas over and over and over again. And this game kind of did that. It had 2 separate timelines where I'm pretty much going to the same places most of the time. And sometimes I have to retread those places over and over and over again. And it's not that enjoyable. Like, if we could swap them up, if there were certain areas that were locked off that could only be gone to in one timeline versus the other, it would switch things up a little bit and add a little bit of pace change for the timelines, make them a little bit more different. Progressing a chapter only to reach a point where you can't progress and have to then swap to a different timeline is a huge momentum killer. And I touched on this before as well. Sometimes you get to a moment where, things are getting good and it's just like, oh, well, gotta swap to a timeline. So we'll come back to this in 4 to 6 hours. There's also the thing where, like, there's those moments of, I have to make a decision here and think carefully about this. And, a lot of those situations are very silly. I think they could have changed up how we approach that. If we could make, as I'm thinking about this, it sounds crazy, and I would never want them to do this, but like, if we could make a decision at the beginning of the chapter and that would influence where we go, I would prefer to see ideas kind of like that, at least sprinkled in maybe here or there. And you have the fast forward thing to fast forward to that, which actually gets me to another thing that I don't have written down here, is having to refight bosses, being required to refight bosses and encounters and things like that, is a huge misstep in my opinion. It should definitely be optional if you have already beaten those encounters. And I wish they did something like that. Because, like, right here, for example, fighting the final boss again, just to see if I can get credits, I don't think I'm interested in that. Although I will say the final boss wasn't insane. It wasn't that Viola fight. Let's see. The Vault of Time is interesting. I don't get the impression it was in the original, but I wish it was fleshed out more. The rewards felt lacking in comparison to what can be purchased. Yeah, I thought the Vault of Time, it had its moments for me. But it's very much this just like out of the way, optional thing that doesn't have a whole lot of depth to it. And it didn't feel worth getting into a lot of the time either because the rewards weren't so great. But there's not a lot of money in this game, so that place does have some nice uses to it. The Dunamis didn't seem to pan out in a way that felt meaningful to me. It just felt like side quests, although there was some novelty to witnessing what-if moments. So I think the Dunamis was probably the closest thing that I got to like the timelines being like crazy and wacky and things like that, but they were all still fairly similar. So I wish there was more to it than that. Or, yeah, I wish they felt less like side quests. For combat, the design of combat is very cool and implemented in an even cooler way. Being able to reposition enemies so that you can damage multiple at the same time. Very cool. Enemies come in different sizes, meaning that one enemy can sometimes be pushed into two enemies with just one attack. Also very cool. There are trap abilities that you can push enemies into. Also very cool. You can reorder allies on the turn order display effectively however you want with no penalty if they go before the enemy does. Amazingly cool. a game where you can reorder your party to attack in whatever order you want them to is insane. And then on top of that, like, there's already benefits to doing actions like that. Like, for me, I was using the air attack with Stalk to get them up into the air, and then using Rainy to use a magic spell on them to launch them down, and they take, giga damage from stuff like that. Being able to reorder Marco so that he's at the top of the list, so that he can get rid of everybody's status effects, so that I don't have to worry about them for subsequent turns. Being able to put Rainy at the top of the list to cast regen, so that when people take actions after her, they get the effects of that regen on those actions. Just like a way customizable feature that works out in amazing ways, and like being able to swap with enemies so that you can just line up these giga long turns and things like that. Absolutely fantastic. Support attacks and abilities from backup party members is also very cool. I do wish there was a way to set like a prioritization of which support abilities you wanted to use. Maybe like either in certain circumstances, or just like turn off the ones that you don't want them to use. I don't think that's a thing. Never actually checked. I don't think that's a thing. And Mana Burst to remove enemy turns or do big damage to enemies. Yeah, Mana Bursts are really, really cool. They also, have some support ones in there as well, and I like them. I like them a lot. For dungeons, I don't really have anything to say about dungeons. Cardinal Sins, removing a key party member without sufficient replacements. It happens over and over and over again, everywhere in this game. Forcing the player to use certain party members. Happens all the time. Backup party members earn less experience. This one's probably the one of the most obnoxious ones for this game, because if every character earned experience at the same time, even if they weren't in that timeline, I would have probably been able to use a different setup than what I have now. I mostly feel like I was trapped into this party composition because they were the only party members that would stick with me through both timelines, throughout the entirety of those timelines. I even made the decision to swap out Marco for Erica, and then she gets removed from my party not like 4 hours later, 6 hours later, or something like that. So it's just so annoying, like, give me the party members. If you're gonna swap out the party members for whatever reason, make it so that they're still earning experience and not getting punished for you removing them from my party and making it so that I can't even have them there to begin with. It's so annoying. And I have here excessive backtracking with a question mark. I might even just say that I will apply this one to this one, because in my eyes, I have beaten the game, and I now have to backtrack to go do whatever else I need to do, presumably, to even potentially get credits. So I'm going to keep that one in there. Miscellaneous sound and music, absolutely S-tier music. Yoko Shimomura is an absolute boss, and love the soundtrack for this game. Have a level up this playlist episode for this game as well. Voice acting. I wasn't expecting voice acting in the game and was pleasantly surprised by it. I think that some characters, such as Ott and Marco, stand out more than others, but everyone did a good job. Heiss, Raul, Diaz, and Protea were also memorable despite not being on screen very much. I'll also add Selvan. I think he had some memorable moments as well. For graphics, visuals look good. There are some animations that I wish had more in-between frames, but that's a very minor thing. Yeah, I like the visuals of this game. I like the sprites on 3D implementation that they did here. I think it's very nice. I think some of the UI could probably use a little bit of work here. I think like this screen in particular is not utilizing space very well. There's definitely just scenarios where I want more and or less, and they kind of do things. And I think like this screen as well is not done great. It works. It's fine, but not amazing. For others, the game worth recommending? I would recommend this game. Absolutely. Especially if, you want to do everything and see all the possibilities and things like that. If the developer is watching, I think this game has a lot of great ideas, and the implementation of some of those ideas are really good. I think, again, my biggest criticisms are I want the pacing in the story to be more continuous than it is, and I want like the party member system to not be so punishing. I don't want to feel like I'm locked into the same 3 party members that I got at the very beginning of the game, when there could potentially be other party members that are just as useful, if not more so. And yeah, that's basically all that I got there. What I want to do is I'm going to close this. I want to check out the DS version real quick, because I feel like there's way more differences in these two games. Hopefully I didn't like delete my old save file. What modes here? Oh, guess I didn't need to swap modes. What was the let's see. So this one has a star. Means that I've beaten the game on this one. Man, like this is the UI is like totally different. Go to Historia. Okay, so I don't even have the options to... Okay, so that stuff was confirmed to be that stuff. Rosh and Sonya vow to keep the world safe for the sake of stock. Okay. Did the screen swap? Maybe. There, we can go over here. Yeah, there's less entries. All kinds of stuff. So the... You know what I also don't see? I don't see the extra abilities. Like those trainers with like the scrolls and stuff like that. They were around here, and they're not here. So that's very interesting as well. Beast God's reign. Gafka became the Beast God and saw all humans as his enemies. He uses his power to eliminate them and wipes the world clean of humanity. Hey, that doesn't sound like a terrible thing, considering, you know, humanity ruined everything. Oh, here's the Master Vancour one. Maybe they are in here. Although I don't see them for everyone else. Just stock odd. I mean, maybe I didn't discover them in this, you know, timeline or whatever. One last thing I wanted to check is if there's voice acting. Because I don't remember voice acting. Nope. There's no voice acting in the original. So they added voice acting. I see you. I see. Stock looks totally different, by the way. So does Rosh, actually. And Sonia. That's crazy. That is crazy. Doesn't look like I can, I can't skip cutscenes that I've already seen in this version either. You like these kind of rooms, though? What rooms? What are you talking about? Erica also looks very different. As soon as I get out of here, I'm gonna check. Already, I guess I can't check here. Oh wait, I can. Oh, I can't. There's some menus missing. More zoomed in and not so top down. Yep. Can't hold down the button like I could with the other one. Actually, it looks like everybody looks different. Ott still looks largely the same. I think Ott doesn't have... no, Ott largely looks the same. Gafka looks largely the same. Oh my gosh, Erica looks completely different. Completely different. Ott looks way older? I don't know about all that. I don't know about all that. All right. OGDS replay win. Yeah. I'm sure if I went to beat the final boss in this one, I can get credits. All right. That's going to wrap it up for me for today. Like I said, I might come back Monday. 5% chance after I've looked up some things, and maybe I'll get credits. But I think more than likely is when I spend time looking up what I need to do to get credits, I'm going to learn that it's not going to be worth the effort just to get the credits when I've already beaten the game, which I more or less can confirm from my original game playthrough, where those end up being largely the same. So yeah, thanks for watching, appreciate it. I'll be back Monday 7 a.m. Pacific time to most likely start something new. And with that, see ya the next time I see you. Peace.